Hello everyone and welcome to my first YouTube video. Bum ba da bum. As it's my first one, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to have to make my own sound effects. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about some photography and more precisely about some panoramas that I've been shooting. I recently took a couple of these and my friends were really curious about how I was doing, so I wanted to make a quick YouTube video, share what's out there. I am by no means an expert. I've just also been watching a bunch of YouTube videos lately and I was like, oh, that's cool. Let me try and join this community and share what I know. So the image that we're looking at is one that I took recently in Los Morillos Lighthouse in Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico. I grew up there and went there really frequently, and so I just have a lot of fond memories. I was back there recently and I wanted to take a picture that reminded me of all those warm childhood memories and I could keep as a keepsake for thinking about them later on. So this is the image. It's actually a compilation of I think 27 or 28 images in the end. I took them separately but then recompiled them in Photoshop. There's a lot of benefits to this approach. One, you get a bigger file, which in the megapixel war is always better. So this picture ended up being probably 70 inches wide by about 20-25 high. So you could print it huge if you have the printer, obviously. And second all, it gives you a unique look that most people aren't getting when you just take a picture and crop it. So we're going to talk a little bit about this from beginning to end, and there we go. So, as I said, this is a Photoshop image, obviously, and just to get back to the starting point, I'm going to take out all the layers, and this is what we start with. Obviously, it looks a lot different, but now you can start seeing exactly what's going on, and it's literally just a compilation of a bunch of images. If you look here, here are all of them, and you can, uncheck some of them, and you see how the image starts to go together. Now, let's take a little bit of a look at the actual raw images. So I'm going to pop this up in Bridge, and this is what they are. So literally 27 images in the end. And so I just used a 50mm 1.4. I use that because I think it's a particularly sharp lens, and it's long enough that it allows you to capture a lot of images again so that you can boost that megapixel range. And as you can see, I just started from, I guess, the bottom right of the scene and just started going across, taking a picture. One thing to keep in mind is that you want to set your exposure to manual and then shoot the same exposure the whole way through. This has some downsides. Obviously, in the original image, you can see that it's got a little bit too much contrast, so you're blowing out some of the sky while you're losing some of the detail in the darkness. But the other option would be to, I guess, change your exposures, but then you get weird fluctuations and you'll start to see differences amongst the pictures. I think it's better just to keep the same exposure and then deal with the contrast in Photoshop afterwards. So we have our images. You're going to take them. Oh, also with focus, don't put it on manual. Leave it on autofocus and allow it to change throughout. That actually allows for better focus, and you don't really lose much because the change in focus occurs gradually over the image because you have multiple small shots, so it still looks fine. So just to recap, in the shooting, keep it on manual exposure, shoot the same exposure, shoot out, and then with the focus, put it in autofocus and change the focus throughout. So once you have your images, and you can take them into Bridge and change whatever you want. I left them as is. They were pretty good. And so then from there, you're going to go to your tools. You're going to go to Photoshop, go to Photo Merge. So this, literally what it does is it merges pictures. Now there's a number of ways to do it. You can see them right here. If you want to have a seamless image, then I think usually auto is pretty good, and then you have the blend together. That's going to cut out those lines that you're seeing in my images and blend them together. And Photoshop does a pretty good job of it. However, I don't want that because I want those lines. I like them. I think they're a good artistic component. So instead I'm going to go with reposition image. reposition image, uncheck the blend images option, again, or else you're going to get a smooth gradation. And then you just hit OK. Now, I'm not going to hit OK because I compiled it before because it takes a while. And so we're going to take a look at the end, and boom. This is what Photoshop kicked back to me after hitting the merge. You just have literally the 27 pictures you input, and Photoshop tries to match them up as well as it can, and it does a good job. This is pretty good. Obviously, it's got some problems here, and most likely it's blowing out because of the the loss of detail in the water. And so now we go to work, and this is something we just have to do. So I'm going to start selecting stuff. If you just put it in the select mode, then you can right-click and select the image and drag it around. I'm just going to put it in a rough area of where it should be. I'm going to move this up. Just again, at this point, you don't need to be too detailed. You just want to get stuff in the right area. Now I'm going to crop it. That's C. And the reason for cropping is just so that you're dealing with a smaller file, so Photoshop isn't going to like freeze up on you. So just crop out the blank areas, hit OK. This is going to take a little bit again. Like this is a pretty big file, right? If you think about each image being about 44, I guess they're 36 megapixels off of D200, then you add 27 of those together and you're, I don't know, you do the math, it's somewhere around a couple thousand megapixels, which huge file. And depending on your computer, your speed, it may be slower or faster. But it's going to crop pretty quickly here, and then we're going to go to work repositioning the images. This is probably the most tedious and time-consuming. And so what you want to do is you're going to look at your image, and probably a good example is the lighthouse, right? So this isn't going to happen. Like, it's just not working. You want those to match up. And so we're going to select one of the layers, and we're going to try to get it to match up with the other side. So you kind of look at, so I'm looking at right here and dragging it over until it matches. Oh, there's a little bit of a gap here, so I'm going to move it back some. You can drag with the mouse, you can use the arrow keys, whichever is easier. And then I'm going to look at the next thing. Also note that there's a lot of dust. It was a very dusty area, so I changed lenses a couple times and paid the price. But we'll fix that in the end. Okay, so that looks good. Let me change this one over here. I'm going to focus on those clouds up there and try to match them. So the clouds are right here. And there's no magic. You just move it around until it looks good. Sometimes you can move it up a little bit. I'm happy with that. And the same thing, we're moving around here. This person's a little interesting, but and you can reposition. So if you look right here, it's starting to match up. And you're always going to get a little overlap, stuff that, duplicates. That's because when you move to take the picture, you're moving your location in relation to the picture, and that changes the perspective. So that's a good thing and a bad thing about this. So usually when you want a seamless panoramic, you try to keep the focal point of the lens stable and rotate around that. But I'm not doing that here because, again, I like the effect. I like the little bit of changes. And so we're going to just keep doing that. So you move on to the next one. So this one, try to fit it in right about there. This one. And also note that you can change which one's on top. So I like this, and I like to keep it larger. So I'm going to drag it to the top and use it as a more focal point. That gives you a little bit less breaking points and whatnot. Okay, and so I'm going to drag, I guess this one's next. Where do you go? There. And then this is kind of like putting together a puzzle, if you guys like those sort of things, where you're just trying to see what matches up and then putting it in. And obviously you're going to have some things that don't match. As I said, don't match. There's a little blank space here, so we need to use this image to fill it. Otherwise, I was going to say you could just take it out, because you want to cut out as many redundant images as possible for file size reasons, but also just because you don't need them. Okay, and so at this point it just starts to get a little tedious, I'll be honest. And it's just something you have to do because you got to do it. See here, I'm going to drag it in a little bit. And there's no right or wrong way. At this point, you're recreating the image a little bit, and so you can use some artistic license to change how you see fit. I want to bring this one to the forefront, just because I don't want that tip covered up. Boom, there. Oh, but I also want this at the forefront. So again, you can just drag it to the top. There may be a shortcut to do this. I don't know what it is at the moment. Probably like bracket or something. I'm sure somebody can put it in the comments and we'll all benefit from that. This one in here. But I want this one at the top. And you can see that at this point what we're doing is we're just moving stuff around. And there's no, again, real right or wrong way to do this. You just do it. It's how you like it and how you feel is right. This is at a pretty good stopping place. I'm going to trust that you guys could all take it from here and do what you would do. And then I just want to touch on two things. So right now the image is, I guess, kind of true to life in that this is what it looked like and this is how I shot it. It's lacking some, I guess, compositional effects. I don't like the fact that this one's bulging down here. I don't like the fact that this side is higher than this side. So at this point what you can do is just actually, copy and paste. For example, like this one over here on the left is a good one. I'm just going to copy it, so if you Alt and drag, you can copy the image. And then I'm going to use this new one to just bolster the sky up a little bit. That way I can get it to be about as high as over here. Right? And then also if you want to fill in over here, we can do the same thing with this one. So just Alt and drag it, and then send it to the back, actually. So you don't have two of the lighthouses. You just want to use the blue from the top. And then we can drag that around. I'm going to do that. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm going to use a different one then, because I don't like how that little cloud is on the bottom. So I'm going to drag it behind, and I'm going to use this one instead. Let's copy that. We'll drag it over. That looks a little better. Some clouds there. We can clone that out later. To deal with this one on the bottom, I'm just going to use a layer mask. So I'm going to select this one and then create a layer mask. So here. And then just using the select tool, I'm going to select the part that I don't want to see and fill it. I'm going to fill it with my foreground color, which is just black at the moment, and boom, it's gone. You can also do that with Control Delete. And this one here, I'll leave it for now. And again, my ultimate image is a little bit different, and we'll see that shortly. But this is the basic idea of how the process works. You use Photoshop to give you a starting place, then you go through and readjust images. And now I'm just going to drag this to the center, and boom. And this is what you start using to then add adjustment layers to make it look more like an image. Now, that's that phase. Let's move into the next phase. I'm just going to close this one out, and we're going to go back to the original image. So this image, like I said, is the same idea. I've just added a black background, right? I do that because I think it looks better on black than on white, but you could do white if you wanted. So for example, like that, I like the black better. Up to you. That's great. Back to black. Okay, so now let's talk about adjustment layers then. And you'll see how I'm going to add a little sky here, a little sky here, try to balance out this bottom. This stuff all lined up. Notice that there are still some kind of things that don't match up. Again, because of the perspective, like, that's just going to happen. But most of it does, and I cropped out this girl over here. But my camera bag is still in the image. And you can see here, it's pretty good. A little overlap here, but I'm fine with that. Again, part of this image look is this whole like multiple layers. So that is all set. So that's my group there. Now I'm going to start talking through the various adjustments I did. So to one, I wanted to tone down the highlights just a little bit. So what I did is I created a new layer of the image, adjusted it with a curve, just added a little bit, and then take a look at my layer mask. So this was a really cool trick I learned from Flickr. I'll drop the link below. But it was a really cool video about how to use this tool, which is Apply Image, to basically create a monocolor layer that you can use to adjust highlights or shadows depending on how you wanted to do it. Again, check out Fleuren's video below. I'm not going to go through that too much. And okay, so I adjusted the shadows down a little bit again. So I took the shadows, brought them down a little bit again, trying to solve that contrast problem. Next, I wanted to brighten up the foreground. The foreground is this really nice, almost blue rock that's picking up a lot of color from the sky behind me. So I want to bring it up, bring up the kind of rock in the shadows again, since the light's coming from that side. Brighten up some more rock. At this point I wanted to darken the edges, again, pull the viewer's gaze into the middle of the image, usually a good idea. Then this is a curve layer, just brightened up the image altogether. Thought it was a little dark. Drop some color balance, again bringing out those blues. In this color balance, let me take you a look at it. What I did is the highlights took them to yellow, while the shadows took them to blue. This does a couple things. One, it gives you a different color look, but two, it actually boosts contrast. Since blue tends to be perceived a little bit darker than yellows, you take the yellows up while you take the shadows down. So again, let's take a look at what that looks like. You see the color, you see the extra contrast. Okay, then again, brightening up the foreground. I'm gonna did a little hue and saturation. This wasn't too much. I just wanted to desaturate some of it a little bit. That was a little bit too punchy in the blues. A little more adjustment. Again, you just keep adding layers, and then finally the last curve. Now, obviously, this is still a work in progress. It's by no means perfect, and you can always adjust away. That's the beauty of Photoshop and layers. But that's pretty much the process that I'm at right now. So just from start to finish again at the shooting, use a longer lens. Sorry, I use my 50mm, which I like. I think it gives you a good kind of image to size proportion. I shot that at a manual exposure and just kept that the same throughout. I think it ended up being like a 60th at like f8 or something. Then for focus, leave it on autofocus and just focus for each image. That gives you good depth of field. Although you can see here how it's a little bit, the downside is that here this was in focus, or like here you can see that the foreground was in focus, so this is a little more out of focus than here. But that's a really small change. I don't think many people are going to notice it. Then once you've shot them, I like to just move left to right. Try to stay as, I guess, still as possible so you get less perspective shift than you would otherwise. So just shoot left to right, top to bottom, however you feel best. Just make sure you get all of the images in there. Then once you've got those images, you process them in RAW. Go ahead and bring them into Photoshop using the photo merge. That will give you a rough estimate of where they should be, and then just, use your artistic talent, which I'm all got, to merge it together and then end up with this image. And then once you get the image, start processing it just like you would any other image, and then voila, you got yourself a picture. And again, let's take a look at the image size. So this one is 25 by 13 inches. I actually cropped this because I can only print 13 inches high. I think it was a little bigger in original. But so that's the image, guys. That's what I wanted to share. Again, let me know if this is something you guys liked, something you found useful. Drop it in your comments below, and what you'd like to see next time. Again, this is my first video, and I hopefully will make some more. So I'd like to know what you guys are interested in seeing. For more of my pictures, take a look at my Flickr account. Check out my Etsy shop. Those are in the links below. If you see any of those pictures that you like, you want to know how I did them, go ahead and just leave me a comment. I'd love to know what you guys think. These are super fun for me to make, and I'm just excited to be able to share the little knowledge that I have, but the lot of joy that I have with you guys in doing this. So also, be a dear, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, like my Facebook page. Again, these things are all putting myself out of line, and I just love to get you guys' support. So I hope you like it, and I'll see you guys next time.